I believe nuclear needs to be a part of this equation, which means we need to open up Yucca Mountain, area read or not. It's got to happen. We've got to go for all these other things. By having an artificial mandate by government, I sat for 6 years on the Energy and Technology Committee in Lansing. I was the only person on that committee, Republican or Democrat, who voted no on the RPS, Renewable Portfolio Standards, when it came before that committee. And the reason why is because I believe that it's setting us up for a false expectation. The governor picked a 25% because it rhymed with 2025. She thought that sounded much better than 30%, 30-35. But we've got to move away from this and go to the market, which means risk.
Energy independence, absolutely. As a kid, I remember in the 70s, the oil embargo, and I'll never forget this cartoon that I saw in a magazine. It was a picture of Uncle Sam as a junkie in an alley with his sleeve rolled up, and he was shooting up a barrel of oil. Well, today, I think that syringe has gotten way bigger. But that message has never left me as a kid. And that's why I believe in conservation, and that's why I believe in the way I live. I live in a LEED certifiable home. I have very low utility bills because I like to spend money on the fun things in life as opposed to energy and things like that. So we as a country must also look, in addition to all the energy sources of coal, nuclear, wind, solar, but more importantly, conservation. So it should be a free choice as well. If you want to drive an SUV, by golly, have that. Don't be bitching and moaning when gas is $4.50 a gallon.
Mr. Cooper?
Just what everything's been said. I think the problem in our country right now is we do not have a comprehensive energy policy. And I would be an all-of-the-above approach. I mean, we need to research oil shale. We need clean coal technology. I would be in favor of nuclear technology. Europe, half of Europe, or more than that, is run on nuclear energy right now. But I think one of the first hurdle we have to get over before we can move forward with comprehensive energy policy in our country is we have to stop allowing the people who carry the biggest sign and have the loudest voice to dictate what that policy is going to be.
Mr. Reamer?
I agree with a lot that's been said tonight. It needs to be a comprehensive, all-of-the-above strategy in order to gain energy independence. I think it's not only critical for our economic future, but it's a matter of national security. I mean, right now, what we are doing is funding both sides of the war. Like we've already been talking about here tonight, we are giving money to people that don't like us very much, and I think it's critical that we recognize that. So what's my energy policy is an all-of-the-above strategy. Oil, gas, renewable, nuclear, coal, and that's what I would advance in Washington, D.C.
Mr. Shedd?
Bill, did you read my notes? I think you did.
Cheating out
I don't know, we've all got two.
We're not reinventing the wheel here.
No, we're not. And everything pretty much is said. I think Wayne articulated it pretty well. We need to wean ourselves from foreign oil without a doubt, and it is a national security issue. The only other thing that I would add is that I would not like to see wind and solar forced upon the American people, only because it's not technologically advanced at this point. I think the free market needs to work on it a little bit more because I believe in coal and nuclear energy to meet our short-term demands, but everybody's pretty much said it already.
All right, the next question is, given the state of Michigan's economy, what can and should Congress do to help Michigan, if anything, come out of its economic malaise? And the first responder would be Senator Kuipers.
I would say it's pretty simple. Stay out of the way. Let us do what we can do. So much of the difficulty we've had in balancing our budget over the last 4 years is the fingers of federal government involvement in all of the programs that we operate. There's no one area where you can find substantive amounts of money to cut, because then you also lose the federal government match. And so then instead of a $100 million program cut, it quickly becomes a $500 million program cut. So I would go to Washington with this message. The states are fairly competent and can resolve their issues on their own. We, being Congress, seem to be making it worse. The other thing I would say is, if we want our manufacturers to be able to compete on a global scale, we need to quit looking at them as if they're the bad guy. Less regulation, lower the corporate tax burden across the board, and let's let the most productive workforce in the world compete on a global scale.
Mr. Heisenberg.
What can Congress do to turn around Michigan? First of all, there is a limited amount that the federal government can or should do to be able to do this outside of taxation and regulation. And frankly, we are over-regulated, and I'll give you a couple of quick examples. When I was working for Congressman Muskegon, we dealt with the EPA on air transport pollution. The EPA refused to acknowledge that air transport pollution caused pollution here in West Michigan. And what that meant was Milwaukee, Green Bay, Gary, Indiana, and all these other places. One of the 10 dirtiest spots in the entire country was deemed to be Scottville, Michigan, out in Mason County. Now, I know the clown van produces a bit of methane, but it's not that much. And that was because we had all this stuff coming across, and yet they refused to acknowledge that. And they were holding up business. And that was one of the reasons why the camera closed up there. And we cannot continue to do that. We've got to dial that back, and we've got to remove that. And we all want clean air and clean water, but we cannot just make these burdens so onerous that it just clamps down on the private sector.
Mr. Marson.
At times when the government gets involved with good intentions, there's bad outcomes. To be quite honest with you, I think that what we need to have in Washington, D.C. is common sense policies to encourage job growth at the private sector, and more importantly, the private sector of small entrepreneurs and small businesses, because that's what the economic engine is of this economy in this country, is small business. So, as I like to say, is the economic engine, which, like I said, is small businesses sometimes gasping and sputtering because of the excess regulation placed on it.
Mr. Cooper.
As we all know, Michigan, I think, ranks 50th in about 10 different economic categories. So if we're going to talk about state issues, I think there are 5 really critical issues in the state of Michigan, and I'll save the best one for last. The first thing we need to do is address our Michigan business tax. At a minimum, we need to get rid of the surcharge, but we should eliminate the entire tax. One way to do that is to get rid of all this government foolishness where we pick winners and losers, like the Michigan Film Initiative, the MEDC, the 21st Century Jobs Center. We get across-the-board cuts like that. We could make our state attractive to all businesses. Also, we need to streamline the regulations of this area, which I addressed earlier. We should eliminate prevailing wage laws in our state. But one of the most important things we can do in our state to turn our economy around immediately, and it's proven itself in every state where it's been done in the last 25 years, is become a right-to-work state. What we would do if we did that, we would send a message to the rest of the country that Michigan is open for business. And that would be the single biggest, easiest piece of legislation. It's challenging to get through, but once it got through, it would be the best piece of legislation to send a message to the entire country that we want major manufacturers to move into Michigan. We could eliminate the argument about the MEDC and things like that at that point.
Mr. Rivers.
I think, we're running for federal office, but I think this is applicable to what we're seeing advanced in Washington, D.C., because what we've had here in the state of Michigan is a failed model of taxation, regulation, and unionization. And I would argue that what you're seeing out of the current administration in Washington, D.C. is just that, taxation, regulation, and unionization. And the best way to turn the economy back, north here in Michigan, as well as our entire country, is to recognize that we have the second highest corporate tax rates in the world, 35%, second only to Japan. We need to dramatically reduce corporate tax rates. We need to extend the Bush-era tax cuts. We're going to have a great tax hike here coming up at the end of this year. We don't need to have government being in the habit of picking winners and losers in a particular industry. What we need to do is give more money back to the job providers and entrepreneurs to spur economic growth.
agenda?
Well, Ronald Reagan said